She gave him supplies without authorization. That's grounds for suspension. That's what the administrator said, after the nurse quietly handed a struggling veteran what the system refused to. She didn't argue, didn't fight, just turned in her badge and then walked out. But a few hours later, the elevator dinged, and a 3-star general stepped into the lobby and asked for her by name. If you believe compassion should never be punished, comment respect for those who still do the right thing. Rachel Monroe, 38, had been a nurse at North Haven General for nearly a decade. She was known for her soft voice, steady hands, and a habit of calling every patient sir or ma'am, regardless of status. That Tuesday afternoon, a man limped into the ER lobby. He was older, thin, sunburned. His ID said Samuel Green. His dog tag said U.S. Army. He had a deep gash on his leg, was dehydrated, and showed signs of infection. The front desk clerk took one look and whispered, "No insurance." Rachel overheard. "That doesn't mean he doesn't need care." The charge nurse frowned. "We can't admit him officially. He's not in the system." "Then I'll treat him unofficially," Rachel said. She took a medkit, bandaged the wound, gave him antibiotics and a protein bar from her own locker. Samuel winced as she cleaned the wound. "Ma'am, I don't want to cause trouble." Rachel smiled reassuringly. "You fought for us. Least we can do is patch you up properly." His eyes, weathered by desert suns and sleepless nights, held hers for a moment. "Thank you," he whispered, voice rough with emotion. "You didn't see this," she told the patient, "but you're not leaving here limping." The next morning, she was called into admin. "You breached protocol. Dispensed medication without authorization." Rachel stood straight. "I helped a man who served this country. You're suspended pending review." No hearing. No appeal. Just a cold hallway in silence. She packed her things and left. No applause. No protest. As the door closed behind her, Rachel felt a hollow ache in her chest. 10 years of service, erased with a single sentence. Outside, the bright sunlight seemed to mock her confusion. She clutched her personal items to her chest, badge conspicuously absent. In her car, she finally allowed herself to breathe. "I'd do it again," she whispered to no one. The veteran's grateful eyes flashed in her memory. Worth every consequence. Her phone buzzed, messages from colleagues. Most tiptoeing around what happened. A few brave ones said they stood with her. Empty comfort in the face of a mortgage and an uncertain future. Rachel drove home slowly, replaying the moment. The veteran's wound, angry and red. His stoic face hiding obvious pain. The way he'd whispered, "Thank you, ma'am," with such dignity that it nearly broke her. At home, she placed her nursing textbooks on the kitchen table. Years of training had taught her about protocols, procedures, and paperwork. But nowhere had it said what to do when humanity and hospital policy collided head-on. She made tea she didn't drink and watched shadows lengthen across her living room floor. Tomorrow would come, with or without her badge. The question was, what would she do with it? By evening, word had trickled out. Staff whispered. Some praised her quietly. Others avoided eye contact. Online, someone posted, "Nurse suspended for helping a veteran. Welcome to 2024. Comments exploded. Policy over people. Disgusting. She's a hero. Period. If this is true, that hospital should be ashamed. My brother came home from Iraq with PTSD and no help. Thank God for nurses like her. Fire the administrator instead." But if it was a rich guy with insurance, they'd have rolled out the red carpet. The hospital remained silent. No statement. No apology. Rachel sat on her porch trying not to cry. Her phone buzzed nonstop. Texts from coworkers, veterans, strangers. One message stood out. It read, "He told me what you did. You don't know me, but I know him. I'm coming." No name. No number. Just that. At the hospital, the administrator stood by the decision. "We can't reward rule breaking. It's about order." The next morning, everything changed. 10:14 a.m. The elevator dinged. A man in full uniform stepped into the lobby, silver stars on his shoulder. The security guard froze. "Can I help you?" The man replied, "I'm looking for Nurse Rachel Monroe." Word spread like wildfire. Phones came out. Staff peeked around corners. The administrator rushed down. "General, may I ask what this is about?" "I'm here to speak on record," the general said to everyone. Yep. By nightfall, Rachel's suspension had become a lightning rod. Local veterans began calling the hospital switchboard, tying up lines with simple questions. Is it true you turn away those who served? The operators had no answers. They just wrote apologies. Rachel's neighbor, a retired teacher, brought over lasagna. "My son was in Iraq," she said simply. "Someone like you once treated him when he couldn't pay. We never forgot." Rachel's voicemail filled up. Her social media accounts crashed with notifications. One journalist left 4 messages. 2 job offers arrived from private clinics, both mentioning they'd heard what happened. Meanwhile, at North Haven General, the mood darkened. Nurses took longer breaks. Paperwork moved slower. Small acts of rebellion rippled through departments. A nurse supervisor wore a miniature flag pin against dress code. A resident doctor taped a handwritten, "Thank you for your service" sign in the staff lounge. The administrator, Victor Langston, called an emergency meeting. "This isn't about veterans," he insisted to blank faces. "It's about procedure, about liability, about rules that keep us all safe." A young nurse spoke up. "Safe from what? Compassion?" Langston dismissed her comment. Later, he found his office coffee mug had mysteriously disappeared. That night, Langston sat alone reviewing Rachel's file. Exemplary performance reviews. Patient satisfaction scores that topped the department. No previous infractions. His phone rang. It was the hospital board chairman. "The story's spreading, Greg. Veterans groups are involved now. Some congressman's aide called me." "She broke protocol," Langston insisted. "Clear as day. Sometimes protocols need examining," the chairman replied. "Fix this before it breaks us." Langston didn't sleep. At dawn, he drafted a statement defending the suspension while offering to review policies regarding emergency care for veterans. It satisfied no one, least of all himself. At 9:30 a.m., his assistant knocked frantically. "There's a military vehicle outside. And sir, it has flags on it." Langston looked out his window. A black SUV with government plates sat at the entrance. A driver in uniform stood at attention beside it. "Who is it?" he asked, throat suddenly dry. "I don't know, but they're asking for Rachel Monroe. And they mentioned you by name." Langston straightened his tie. Whatever was coming, he'd face it with dignity. But as the elevator announced its arrival with that familiar ding, his professional certainty wavered for the first time. The general stepped into the center of the waiting room. "My name is General Nathaniel Cole," he said, "and I served with the man your nurse helped." A pause. "Samuel Green saved my life in Afghanistan, twice." Murmurs rippled through the staff. The administrator swallowed hard. He didn't want attention, just some antibiotics and dignity. "Your nurse gave him both." Cole turned to the front desk. "I understand you turned him away because he had no insurance." Silence. "When I was bleeding out behind a Humvee, Green didn't ask me for a policy number. He just acted. When our convoy hit an IED and we had 3 critical men down, Green ran through gunfire to reach them. No protective gear, no guarantee of safety, just duty and honor." Cole's voice remained measured, but his eyes burned with quiet intensity. He held up a letter, signed and sealed. "I sent this to the Secretary of Veterans Affairs. And this," he pulled a smaller envelope, "is for Rachel Monroe." The administrator opened his mouth. "General, this is highly irregular. So is punishing kindness." He turned to a young nurse nearby. "Where is Rachel now?" "She's out front, sitting on the curb." Cole walked outside. Rachel looked up, confused. "Sir," he saluted. "Corpsman Monroe, permission to thank you properly." "I'm not military," she replied. "No, but you remembered what we fight for." He handed her the letter. Inside, an invitation to speak at the National Medical Ethics Summit, and a new job offer, VA Regional Emergency Liaison. Cameras flashed. Reporters arrived. But Rachel said nothing. She just looked back at the ER doors. "Will they change?" she asked. "Only if someone like you walks back in." Time seemed to slow as General Cole's words hung in the air. The hospital lobby had fallen completely silent, a room full of people collectively holding their breath. Every eye watched the exchange through windows, doorways, and security camera feeds displayed on monitors. Langston stood frozen, his authority suddenly paper-thin against the weight of Cole's medals and the moral clarity of his words. This wasn't just about one nurse anymore. This was about systems that forgot their purpose, about rules that had lost their heart. "Samuel Green," Cole continued, his voice carrying through the open doors, came home from 3 tours with more shrapnel in his body than most museums. He never complained, never asked for recognition. When he got that infection, he waited 5 days before seeking help because he was taught to endure, to not burden others. Rachel looked down at the envelope in her hands. "I don't understand. Why go to all this trouble for me?" Cole's expression softened. "Because what happened to you happens everywhere. Good people punished for doing good things. Someone had to draw the line." Inside, Langston stepped forward, aware of the moment's gravity. "General Cole, may I speak with you privately?" "No, sir," Cole replied firmly. "Whatever you have to say should be said where everyone can hear it." A tense standoff followed. Langston glanced at the hospital logo above the entrance, North Haven General Care without compromise. The irony wasn't lost on him. "Nurse Monroe," Langston said finally, his voice carrying across the courtyard, "your suspension is rescinded." A nurse in the lobby clapped, then stopped, uncertain if celebration was permitted. The silence that followed was deafening. "That's insufficient," Cole responded. "Rescinding a wrongful action isn't the same as making it right." Langston's face flushed. "What would you have me do?" Acknowledge the failure wasn't hers. It was in a system that forgot its purpose. Rachel watched this exchange, still seated on the curb, letter in hand. Around her, a small crowd had gathered, patients, staff, passers-by, drawn by the unusual sight of a 3-star general at a community hospital. A man stepped forward from the crowd, Samuel Green himself. Walking without a limp, his infection cleared, he stood beside Cole, saying nothing. His presence spoke volumes. Langston looked between them, the general, the veteran, the nurse. 23 years of hospital administration had taught him to protect the institution at all costs. But in this moment, he couldn't remember why. "Ma'am," he said finally, "I apologize to you and to Mr. Green. I lost sight of what matters most." Rachel slowly stood, brushing off her jeans. "What happens now?" Cole smiled. "That depends on what's in that letter." Weeks later, North Haven General added a new plaque near the ER. "This department is dedicated to those who act with compassion before protocol." Rachel declined interviews, but she did return to work, in a new role helping train staff on how to treat veterans with dignity. The same administrator who once suspended her reassigned. Samuel Green recovered fully. He visits every Thursday, bringing coffee and a small flag for the front desk. One day, a new nurse asked, "Is that the woman from the story?" Green replied, "She's not a story. She's a reminder." And every time a veteran walks into North Haven now, they find a sign near triage. "You are not forgotten. You are not alone. Welcome home." The story spread beyond North Haven's walls. Other hospitals began reviewing their emergency care protocols. A state senator proposed legislation ensuring veterans received immediate treatment, regardless of insurance status. They called it the Rachel Hart Act. 3 months after what staff now called the General Cole incident, Rachel walked the halls of North Haven with quiet purpose. She wore a new badge, part hospital staff, part VA liaison, a position created specifically for her. The changes went beyond symbolism. Pal had been transferred to administrative duties at the regional office, away from patient care decisions. The board had implemented a new emergency care protocol. No veteran would ever be turned away again, regardless of insurance. 6 other hospitals in the network had adopted similar policies. Rachel's office, once a storage closet, now renovated with a window, had become an unofficial gathering place. Veterans stopped by with questions. Staff came seeking advice. Even doctors consulted her on difficult cases involving former military. General Cole had kept his word. The letter had contained not just a job offer, but a blueprint for institutional change. One that Rachel was now implementing with characteristic quiet determination. On a rainy Tuesday, exactly 4 months after Samuel Green had first limped into the ER, Rachel found a small package on her desk. Inside, a simple frame containing her old hospital badge alongside a handwritten note. Some rules are meant to be broken. Thank you for knowing which ones. It wasn't signed, but she recognized Langston's handwriting. That afternoon, a young resident stopped her in the hallway. I have a patient. Former Marine. No insurance. Protocol says to transfer him to the VA hospital, but that's 2 hours away, and his condition is worsening. Rachel smiled. What does your instinct tell you? To treat him here. Now. Then you already know what to do. As she walked away, Rachel heard the resident call after her. What if I get in trouble? Rachel turned, her expression serene. Then I'll call the general. Subscribe to Black Heart Stories if you believe doing the right thing should never come with a penalty, only with pride.